My name is Adeline Keats, and I'm 31. I count things for a living: risks, ratios, the slow arithmetic of a future you can sleep inside. By day, I'm a senior analyst who color codes spreadsheets. By night, I'm a woman who keeps promises to herself. 3 years of quiet yeses built one dream: a Tesla Model S, the kind of machine that hums like a vow. Evan Rios was 28, sunshine in human form, a marketing guy with a camera-ready grin and a gift for turning moments into content. When we met at a rooftop birthday, I said I liked silence. He said silence was a beat drop before the chorus. It felt like a cute contradiction we could hold between us. He said we a lot. We got promoted. We discovered this amazing ramen place. We should do Napa next month. When I peeled back the we, what lived underneath was my spreadsheet, my overtime, my pared-down wardrobe, my little habits like brewing coffee at home because cafe lattes add up. He had a taste for glossy things, a salary that wasn't there yet, and a certainty that partners share. The day I signed for the Tesla, Evan filmed everything. "Babe, this is iconic," he said, panning across the dealership glass, then catching me grinning, pen hovering over the contract like it might shock me. "We're getting a Tesla." I heard the pronoun and let it float past. It didn't matter, I told myself. My down payment had a real shape, digits I could measure against the years I'd waited. When the charger engaged at home with that soft thunk, I felt something I hadn't allowed in a while: arrival. The first post came an hour later. Evan in the driver's seat, sun slanting across the dashboard like approval. Caption: new ride, new era. No tag for me, not Adeline did this. Just an artfully edited implication. I breathed in, breathed out. Couples share cars, I thought. We were happy. Who cared about captions? 2 months later, he was driving the Tesla most weekdays because client meetings need optics, while I rotated between my old hatchback and the bus. "It's ours," he'd say, flipping the keycard like a coin. When I asked to take it for a high-stakes presentation, his jaw tightened. "I have a pitch. Impression matters." It was easier to let the moment pass than make it a fight. Boundary by boundary, the story bent. We sprouted roots I hadn't planted. On a Tuesday that tasted like recycled coffee and fluorescent air, I logged into my insurance portal to check a renewal date and blinked. The Tesla wasn't listed. I refreshed. Nothing. I called customer service, already apologizing for a probable glitch. "Ma'am, that vehicle was removed March 15th. "Removed by who?" I asked, pressing my palm flat to the desk, as if steadiness could be absorbed through laminate. "Our records say the policyholder requested a transfer." "I am the policyholder." A pause. "There's a recorded call." A male voice indicated authorization to transfer ownership, supported by documentation. I felt the room tilt a degree. "Could you email the documents?" By the time the PDF arrived, my heart was pacing. The release of interest stared up, signed with my name. Except it wasn't. I have a ridiculous flourish in my last name. I crossed the T in Keats so long it underlines the S. Whoever forged it missed that. The line ended timidly, like an apology. I checked the DMV site with trembling fingers. The Tesla was no longer registered to me. Owner: Evan Mateo Rios. There are moments that unzip your life. I sat very still, noting every sound: the AC vent, the distant printer, the click of my own throat, and realized I'd been narrating "we" so long I hadn't noticed the lock changing on me. I called an attorney, Nadia Chen, recommended by a colleague who labeled her surgical. I sent scans. She didn't even soften the verdict. "This is fraud, document forgery, identity theft, likely grand theft auto given the vehicle's value. Do not confront him, preserve evidence, file a report." What happens to him if the DA prosecutes? Probation, restitution, possibly jail depending on priors and the judge. Your job is to tell the truth. I stared at the fake signature again. The timid, undercooked crossbar. Somewhere between love and logistics, Evan had decided that wanting something made it his. I started a folder called Access, bank records, loan auto pays, screenshots of every "our car" caption, the insurance timeline, even a video clip of him pocketing the key card with that casual flick. I copied the entire archive to an external drive and a cloud folder labeled with a boring name he'd never click. The detective who took my case, Rana Morales, spoke like someone who trims fat from sentences. "Don't tip him off," she said. "We'll verify with DMV and insurance. If it tracks, we coordinate a stop at his office lot. Best case, we find him in the vehicle with the fraudulent registration on him. Chain of evidence is everything." I said, "Okay, because what else do you say when the person you love becomes the suspect?" That Friday, Evan posted a carousel, him leaning against the Tesla, friends cheering in the background. The final slide was a boomerang, keys in the air, sun flare at the lens, his smile doing that perfect magazine thing. Caption: "Finally bought my dream car. Hard work pays off." Bought. I sent the post to Detective Morales. She replied 2 words. Very helpful. I didn't go home that night. I went to my best friend Nora's and watched her dog chase dreams in his sleep while my phone vibrated itself sore on the coffee table. Somewhere in the feed, my life was being edited without me. Somewhere in a glove box, the registration had my boyfriend's name. Somewhere between a forged crossbar and a smile that sold fantasy, a line had been crossed. The thing about lines is simple. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. And once you step back over, you don't ever step forward the same way again. By Monday morning, my inbox was a battlefield of normalcy. Budget reports, quarterly forecasts, a memo about the coffee machine repair. I stared at the subject lines and tried to remember what normal had even meant 3 days ago. Detective Morales called around 10. "We're ready," she said. "He still drives it to work every day?" "Every morning. He parks near the side entrance, 2nd floor of the garage." "Perfect. We'll run it clean. Verify VIN, registration, proceed with detainment. You stay out of sight. I'll call once it's done." Her voice was calm, procedural. Mine wasn't. I hung up and sat there, nails pressed against my palm, thinking how strange it felt to protect someone who had stolen from you. At 11:46 a.m. I saw the post. A coworker sent it with no context, just the word "wow." There he was again, the Tesla gleaming in the sunlight outside his office. Caption: "Monday motivation, own your lane." He was grinning. I stared at the screen until the image started to blur, until I almost didn't recognize the man I'd loved. At 12:07, my phone rang again. "Subject in custody," Morales said. "Vehicle impounded. We'll need your formal statement this afternoon." That was it. No drama, no music cue, just a fact. Evan had been pulled over in front of his friends, still smiling, right until they matched the VIN to the stolen registration. That evening, I sat in a quiet room at the precinct while Morales reviewed the photos I'd brought. Screenshots, statements, my folder labeled "Access." "This is airtight," she said. "You did everything right." "Doing everything right still feels awful," I murmured. She looked at me then, her expression softening just enough. "That's because you're decent. Decent people always hurt more in the short term." I went home, dropped my keys on the counter, and waited for the silence to settle. But it didn't. My phone buzzed again and again. Unknown numbers, blocked IDs. One voicemail finally came through. "You called the cops on me?" His voice cracked mid-sentence. "Adeline, are you serious right now? You know that car was ours. I didn't steal anything. We were building a life. How can you do this to me?" I listened twice, then hit delete. That night, the internet turned on me. Evan's Instagram story was a full-blown performance. Soft lighting, somber tone, captions about betrayal and false accusations. He told everyone that I was a controlling ex who'd weaponized the system because I couldn't handle the breakup. His ex-girlfriend, Chloe, reposted it with a string of emojis and the line, "Knew something was off about her." The comments followed fast. "She ruined his career. People get so bitter when they lose the upper hand." Adeline Keats, financial analyst or financial psycho? By midnight, a few of our mutual friends had texted to ask if it was true, if I'd really set him up. One of them, Matt, even called. "Addie, I'm just saying, maybe handle this privately. The guy's humiliated. You've made your point." "He forged my signature, Matt." A pause. "Still, prison? Over a car?" "Over a felony," I corrected quietly. He exhaled. "You used to be more forgiving." Forgiving isn't the same as blind. When I hung up, my hands were shaking, not from guilt, but from the sudden clarity that my social circle had been watching a different movie this whole time. The next morning, my lawyer, Nadia, emailed. "Ignore everything online. Truth holds up in rooms where hashtags don't. But truth moves slower than gossip." At work, people avoided eye contact. In the break room, I heard someone whisper, She's the Tesla girl. That night, I scrolled through his feed until the words lost shape. Every caption had aged like spoiled wine. Partnership, trust, goals. I found an old photo of us in front of my apartment, his arm around me, my keys dangling in his hand. The caption read, "When she trusts you with everything." I zoomed in on the keys, realizing one of them was for the Tesla. The irony stung like salt in an open wound. On Thursday, Morales called again. "We verified everything. He claimed the car was a gift, but your financial trail proves otherwise. The DA's moving forward. You'll get formal notice of the preliminary hearing soon." I thanked her, but when I hung up, I cried, quietly, without reason. Maybe it was grief, or maybe it was the kind of relief that feels like guilt wearing a disguise. Late that night, I typed something I never posted. He said we were partners. He forgot that partnerships need consent. Then I closed the app, deleted the draft, and sat in the dark while my phone pulsed with notifications I refused to open. The truth was out there now, buried under filters and outrage, but I'd stopped trying to prove anything. Because sometimes justice isn't loud. It just waits, steady as an unpaid bill, until someone finally opens the envelope. The courthouse smelled like stale air and burnt coffee, the scent of bureaucracy and bruised hope. I sat in the hallway outside courtroom 2B, clutching a folder so thick it could have doubled as armor. Inside, every receipt, every forged document, every lie that had once looked like love. When Evan walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. The confidence that used to announce him in every room was gone, replaced by the cautious shuffle of someone who'd been told to keep his head down. His lawyer, Richard Paulson, a man with the weary patience of someone who's negotiated too many apologies, guided him to a bench across from me. He didn't look up, but his mother did, a sharp, assessing stare like she was measuring how much of her son's future I'd ruined. Nadia leaned over. "Remember," she whispered, "you don't owe anyone in that row an expression." I nodded. I didn't trust my face anyway. When the hearing started, the DA laid out the facts like stones across a river. Transfer of ownership, forged signature, insurance cancellation, video evidence, social media confession. Each item was a step I hadn't realized I'd been taking toward this exact moment. Evan's lawyer tried to spin it, called it a miscommunication, a domestic misunderstanding. Said we'd merged finances, that maybe my consent had been verbal. The judge's voice cut through the room like glass. "So your client forged her name for convenience?" Paulson hesitated. "There may have been—" "Enough," the judge said. "We'll proceed with formal charges." I didn't breathe again until the gavel hit. Outside, the spring wind carried the smell of rain and car exhaust. Nadia turned to me. "They'll offer a deal, probation, restitution, maybe community service if he pleads guilty. It's generous." "And if he doesn't?" "Then he risks jail, but that's his choice, not yours." For weeks, I tried to carry on. The Tesla sat in an impound lot while I kept making loan payments for a car I couldn't drive, a perfectly absurd metaphor for the relationship itself, paying for something I no longer owned. Evan's side of the internet kept working overtime. His ex, Chloe, posted cryptic quotes. "Some people only love control, not you." Mutual friends reposted them with knowing emojis. I stopped checking. Let them curate their fiction. I was too busy funding reality. The impound fees piled up, $35 a day. I tracked them in my spreadsheet, line after line of damage caused. Nadia told me not to think of it that way. "You're rebuilding, not tallying losses," she said. Easy for her to say. She wasn't writing checks to store her own heartbreak. And yet, amidst the mess, life edged forward. His absence created a kind of space I hadn't realized I'd been missing. I started leaving my phone on Do Not Disturb. I took late-night walks. I stopped narrating my life for anyone else's feed. One evening at work, a colleague named Daniel from the data department stopped by my desk. "You look like someone who's forgotten what weekends are," he said, smiling. I managed a small laugh. Occupational hazard. Over the next few weeks, we found ourselves sharing elevator rides, lunch tables, playlists. Daniel didn't fill silence. He respected it. He didn't ask for stories I wasn't ready to tell. One afternoon, he noticed the insurance paperwork on my desk and said quietly, "Whoever tried to take from you picked the wrong person." It wasn't flirting, it was acknowledgement. The kind that lands softly instead of demanding space. Meanwhile, Evan's case crawled forward. He refused the plea deal. Nadia told me over coffee. He's convinced he can talk a jury into empathy. "Empathy?" I asked. He forged my signature. People convince themselves of anything when pride's on the line. I stirred my coffee until the spoon clinked. He always did love the sound of his own version. The DA prepared for trial. I spent nights reviewing statements, cross-checking timestamps, highlighting evidence. It felt like studying for an exam I never wanted to take, but couldn't afford to fail. One night, around 2 a.m., I opened the folder labeled Access Again. Among all the paperwork, I found a photo I hadn't noticed before, taken by Evan, back when everything still looked easy. I was in the driver's seat, laughing at something he'd said, unaware he was filming. The corner of the screen showed the Tesla's touchscreen display, Owner, Adeline Keats. I stared at that one word, owner. It hit me then. This wasn't just about a car. It was about ownership of my time, my choices, my story. About who gets to rewrite the truth and who finally decides that version ends here. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry, I just wanted one thing that was mine. No signature, but I didn't need one. I didn't reply. Some apologies arrive like IOUs, meant to clear the conscience of the sender, not the debt they owe. The night before the trial, I walked past the impound lot. Rows of silent vehicles gleamed under sodium lights, each one with a story frozen in metal. Mine sat near the fence, dust dulling the paint, a forgotten reflection of everything I'd once called ours. I pressed my palm against the cold chain link. You'll come home soon, I whispered, though I wasn't talking about the car anymore. Because sometimes reclaiming what's yours isn't about repossession. It's about remembering you were never the thief. The trial began on a gray Monday, the kind of morning that smelled like wet concrete and second chances no one deserved. I wore the same navy suit I'd bought years ago for a promotion interview, back when I still believed success meant being trusted. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. The hum of the fluorescent lights drowned out every whisper. When the bailiff called the case, my pulse synced to the sound of my name. Evan looked thinner, his hair shorter, expression somewhere between defiance and disbelief. For a split second, his eyes found mine, pleading. Like maybe if I just looked at him long enough, I'd remember who he used to be. But nostalgia has a short half-life once it meets evidence. The prosecution opened with precision. Forged signatures, DMV records, loan payments, screenshots, the Instagram caption, finally bought my dream car. That one line echoed like a confession on replay. Evan's defense tried to paint a picture of confusion. He'd believed the car was a shared asset. He'd handled paperwork informally. He'd thought verbal consent counted. Each phrase sounded smaller than the last, swallowed by the weight of documents that didn't lie. When the jury left to deliberate, I waited in the hallway, watching the clock above the vending machine tick in slow, deliberate seconds. Nadia leaned against the wall beside me, arms crossed. Less than 4 hours, she said quietly. That's a good sign. She was right. 3 hours and 42 minutes later, they returned. Guilty on all counts. No gasp, no gavel thunder, just the clerk's even tone, the word guilty flattening everything between us. Evan's mother sobbed into a tissue. He didn't look at me again. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he finally understood the difference between losing love and losing credibility. They sound alike, but end differently. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. 18 months in county jail, suspended to 3 years probation. 200 hours of community service, full restitution, $31,000 for the remaining balance and fees, plus my legal costs. Total, $38,000. When the judge read the number aloud, Evan's head dropped. His mother turned toward me and hissed, "You destroyed his life." Nadia's hand found my elbow before I could respond. "No," she said clearly, "he did." Afterward, outside the courthouse, the air felt lighter. Too light, almost unreal. I asked Nadia, "Does it ever feel like justice and exhaustion are the same thing?" She smiled faintly. "Every day." Getting the Tesla back was another maze. It sat in the impound lot for weeks, collecting dust and fees like a museum piece nobody wanted. When I finally reclaimed it, the interior looked like a ghost story. Fast food wrappers, empty coffee cups, mascara stains on the visor mirror, a dent in the bumper that hadn't been there before. I spent an entire Saturday cleaning it, vacuuming crumbs, wiping fingerprints, replacing air fresheners. It was supposed to feel like victory. Instead, it felt like reclaiming a diary someone else had written in. The first time I drove it again, the GPS auto-completed home Evans Loft. I deleted the entry. Twice. By February, restitution payments began. Small, inconsistent deposits. $200 here, $150 there. Nadia said, "It's progress." I called it penance by installment. Around that time, Daniel asked me to dinner, not as a rescue, but as an equal. He chose a quiet place where the music didn't compete with conversation. Halfway through the meal, he said, "You still look over your shoulder when you talk." "I'm learning not to," I admitted. He nodded. "That's a good start." There was no sparkly ending, no cinematic sweep of violins, just steady, mutual respect, the kind that doesn't need witnesses. 4 months after sentencing, a letter arrived, handwritten. The return address stopped me. Evan Rios. I opened it slowly, expecting venom. Instead, it was 6 pages of sorrow. "I never meant to hurt you," he wrote. "I convinced myself it was ours because admitting it was yours meant admitting how little I had. You were building a life, and I was trying to keep up. I crossed a line and called it love." He said he was in therapy, said he finally understood the word entitlement, said he hoped I'd find peace, even if it didn't include forgiveness. The last paragraph read, "You were right to stop me. Some lessons only start when everything else ends." I read it twice. Then I filed it away in the same folder as the court records, because closure, like evidence, needs to be documented. Months passed. The payments kept coming. The Tesla became just a car again. Metal, speed, nothing symbolic. Then, one afternoon in June, I stopped at a cafe near my office. Evan was behind the counter, wearing a green apron and a name tag that just said E. He saw me. His hands froze mid-motion and his face drained of color. I gave a polite nod and ordered from someone else. When I walked out with my coffee, I didn't look back. That night, I sat by the window, the city lights flickering like a pulse. I checked the savings account where restitution payments landed, untouched, growing slowly. I'd already decided what to do when it was full. I'd donate every cent to a legal aid fund for people who couldn't afford lawyers. Evan had taken something from me. Eventually, something good would come from it. Sometimes justice isn't revenge, it's restoration. And sometimes the real verdict isn't written by a judge. It's written by the life you choose afterward. I locked the folder, turned off the light, and whispered to the dark, "I'm done being someone's collateral." The silence that followed didn't echo. It settled.